Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and today I want to talk about two critical things that you really need to make sure that you have nailed down in your business. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it does not matter if you have the best product or service. If you have clear goals and a clear path in mind, it doesn't matter how well organized and how efficient the systems and processes you have in place are. If you get these two elements of your business wrong, if you don't nail these, nothing else matters. That's how important these two things are. And there's a lot of, if you're a business owner, it's very multifaceted, all the things that you need to really excel at, right? You need to, as the CEO of your business, you need to make sure that you are, the master bookkeeper and, the master service provider, and that you nail down all these great things about your business, of course, especially if you are just starting out as a solopreneur and you don't have anyone else on your team. But there are certain things that you can offload. And don't get me wrong, these two things here that we're going to talk about. There are elements that you can potentially offload, but ultimately you as a business owner, you as the CEO, really want to make sure that you are taking some time to effectively evaluate and communicate what these items are. Okay, so let's get into it. The first one that I want to talk about is your marketing. Like I said, it doesn't matter how great your product is if no one wants to buy it, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. And what is it that we want to really make sure that we're diving into when it comes to our marketing strategy? And the first thing is, do you have a marketing strategy? If you do, you might already have some of this nailed down, but I'm going to want you to dig a little bit deeper on the various different elements of this. But you might already have some of these in place, which is fantastic. If you don't have a marketing strategy, if your marketing strategy, so to speak, is just to, do random posts on social media and attend events occasionally and have some business cards printed, that's not necessarily a winning strategy that's going to help you to be able to grow and build your business. Okay, so let's get into this. So people will tell you that to get clients, you need to create a website, advertise on Google, post on social media, attend networking events, host contests, create content, create marketing materials, host lunch and learns, cold call, and many, many, many more tasks that will keep your wheels spinning. And the idea is that if you just do enough things, then you will get the clients. It's not entirely untrue. New entrepreneurs especially are often shocked by how much time they're spending marketing their business with very few calls, very few sales actually show for their efforts. And I mean, you started your business to help others in some way, and yet you seem to spend endless hours trying to be visible and be everywhere that your customers might be. Now, here's why this doesn't necessarily work. All of this marketing misses a crucial step in a clear strategy. I often hear my clients when they come to me for help, they say, listen, I'm doing all the things, but the phone isn't ringing and they can't figure out what it is that they're doing wrong. Now, when this happens, if you are doing all these marketing things that I'm telling you about, these strategies absolutely can work, but not if you haven't nailed down these three things. So when this happens, when you're not getting the phone to ring, it is one of three things, or perhaps more than one of three things. It is what you're saying, how you're saying it, and who you're saying it to. One more time. It is what you're saying, how you're saying it, or who you're saying it to. The real way to get clients and ensure that your phone is consistently ringing with people who are just dying to work with you is to start with a dialed in marketing plan that connects with the people that need and want your services by first identifying who your client is. And this is one of the biggest things that a lot of people miss out on. So when I first started my business, I had a home staging business to start off with. And I had what I thought was my version of a marketing plan. And I didn't really understand who my clients were, or how to reach them, or how my services help them, or how to sell myself. I just sort of assumed that people would just get it. I remember launching my website and just thinking like, all right, the phone's just going to just start ringing off the hook instantly. And it was honestly quite the awakening to realize that people just weren't chomping at the bit and lined it down the street to hire me for my services. I figured since I was so good at what I did, and I had told people what I was doing, they would just rush to hire me. Even people that I knew and knew well, and that had always commented on my creative abilities and that I would be a great home stager. All these people that were supporting me and encouraging me weren't necessarily hiring me. They weren't paying my bills. So my business actually almost failed in the first 2 years because I did not dig deep enough into who my audience was. I just figured, okay, it's homeowners and real estate agents, right? I'm a home stager in the real estate industry. Therefore, homeowners selling their houses and real estate agents who are listing their houses, those are the people who are going to be hiring me. So that's my audience, right? Wrong. I was not dialed in enough to the real people that I wanted to work with and who would want to work with me for that matter. I knew that I wanted to work with real estate agents that I could build a strong partnership with. So I sat down and I mapped out what characteristics my agents had. So the ones that I was already working with that I was really enjoying working with, I took a look at those. And the ones that I was working with that maybe I did not enjoy quite as much, I also wanted to understand those characteristics and what was the difference between them. So I looked at, what are some characteristics these agents have? What offices are they working for? Where are they hanging out? What is it that they value? And I really dug into the ones that I wanted to work with. I really dug into what they really wanted. By taking that time to properly craft a strategic marketing plan and really drilling down to who your clients are, what makes them tick, and how you can help them, you can create the messaging that is going to resonate with them and have them absolutely begging to work with you. And as you begin to build your clientele, you're going to become more and more dialed into their needs, and you'll be able to build a momentum from this because they're going to tell you as you work with them, they're going to tell you what it is that they need if you listen to them. Okay. And we talked on it. If you haven't listened to it yet, go back to episode 4, where we talk about doing some market research calls. There's a ton of value in doing that as well. And that will also help you to better understand who your clients really are. So take a listen to that episode if you haven't done so already. Okay. So let's talk about the formula for marketing. As I said, it's what you're saying, how you're saying it, and who you're saying it to. So we're going to dig into these a little bit more. So what you're saying. What is it that you want your clients to know about you and your value? What are the benefits to working with you? What sets you apart? These are two different things, keep in mind. So there are things that are part of your value, of what makes you valuable, makes you an expert. This might be your training, for example. And sure, hundreds, thousands of other people might have the same training as you. So that doesn't set you apart. It doesn't make it less valuable though either. So all the things that add to the value that you provide in that service. And then look at the things as well that maybe set you apart from the competition, things that you do just a little bit differently, and then explain why those actually have value as well. So let's say that you have a personal training business that focuses on supporting women in their 40s or older. Sounds like a great business. You could emphasize the specific results that you can help them achieve. So weight loss or specific aesthetic, increased metabolism and energy, while also explaining that each of your training programs are customized to each client's needs using their metabolic type, their age, their fitness level, and craft a plan that works for them, complete with a meal plan. Imagine how valuable that would be to someone who's in that age group and to someone who actually fits with that clientele, right? So provide some background of your expertise, such as your certifications, maybe your years of experience, specialized training techniques, your unique approach to fitness. Okay, so now we've got what we're saying. We understand what it is that we're going to communicate. And there's a bit more to crafting your marketing message. That's a whole other episode because you do really want to dig into really addressing the problems they're facing and providing the solutions to it. Okay. You don't want to focus just too much on the features of what you do. You really want to focus on the benefit and the value. But again, that's a whole other episode. Okay. So let's talk about though, how you're saying it. This gets into that messaging a little bit here. So sell them on what they want and give them what they need. So you might understand that their path to wellness is multifaceted, right? But if you try to sell them on the fact that you give a personalized assessment or a free consultation, they're not going to understand why any of that matters, right? They're looking for results. So you can say, listen, this is a great opportunity for you. I'm going to give you a free assessment. I'm going to give you a free consultation. What does it matter to them? What they want to know is, can you help me? Right? Your free assessment, your free consultation doesn't say, I can help you. So you want to frame your marketing message in a way that resonates with your client's desires for tangible results, while also emphasizing the value of a comprehensive and sustainable approach to fitness. So you're going to sell them on losing X number of pounds in Y days, or you're going to sell them on a specific aesthetic feature like a slim core, or if you want, defined core muscles. Or maybe it's a matter of selling them on certain abilities. So we're talking about women in their 40s, but let's say you are focusing on women in a higher age bracket where the bone density is much lower and they're really focused on functional type movements. So you might even say to them something along the lines of, be able to get up from the floor playing with your grandchildren without every bone in your body cracking and aching, things like that. So give them something that they can relate to. Like, this is definitely a problem that I'm having and you're going to solve it. So once you sell them all that, you're going to then train them on the healthy eating habits and a holistic approach to wellness. And you're going to include elements of functional training and injury prevention and corrective exercises into your program to ensure their overall health and wellness and fitness level. But you're not necessarily going to sell them on all of those things because that's not necessarily what they're looking for. So you want to sell them what they want and give them what they need. So this is where the how you're saying it comes in. You're not misleading them. Okay. Keep that in mind. At no point do I want you to give misleading information, but make sure that you are framing that information in a way that matters to them. What are the results that they're looking for? Again, I can do an entire episode on this, but we're not going to get into the messaging all that far, just enough to understand that you do want to pay attention to how you are framing that message. And then let's talk about who you're saying it to. So if you nail down the what you're saying and how you're saying it, but you're not saying it to the right person, then it won't matter. So for example, if you're charging hundreds of dollars per month for your services, you're going to need to ensure that you're marketing to the people who can afford to pay this and are willing to invest in it. So you're selling these people on their youth, and people will pay good money for that. If there's anything that we can do to reverse aging in any way, we will absolutely invest in it. So figure out where they're hanging out. Okay, you want to make sure that you're now reaching those people. Figure out where they're hanging out. Maybe you host an event at a local juice bar, for example. Or if you're an online business, then perhaps you're teaming up with influencers who are promoting luxury brands and having them promote your services in some way. So you want to make sure that wherever they're hanging out, if the people that you are promoting to, let's say everyone that you're talking to, they only hang out on Instagram, but you're promoting on Facebook or LinkedIn. Or if we're talking even like more locally, if you're advertising on the top 40 radio station, but the people that you're promoting to actually listen to more of the easy listening type stations, then you'll want to make sure that that's where your ads are playing, right? Okay, so now that you've nailed down what you're saying, how you're saying, and who you're saying it to, let's take a look at what other roadblocks you might be putting up for your clients to work with you. And don't get me wrong, we've already indicated that we want to work with the right client. And so if you identify what you would consider sort of a barrier that someone has, but they're not an ideal client, then it might not be worth spending any time on correcting, so to speak. Over the years in my businesses, I have received a lot of unsolicited advice from some super unqualified people. I've definitely had people who have no intention of ever hiring me for any of the services that I'm offering, but are very quick to offer advice as to how I might improve them so that someone like them would invest in it. And the reality is that if they're not my ideal client, I don't overly value their opinion. Doesn't mean dismiss it completely, because there might be some value to it, but you do want to pay attention to what it is your clients really want. And so are there barriers to working with you, such as, can they find what they're looking for on your website? Are there answers? Are there questions that they have right out of the gate that they can find on your website? If not, make sure you are adding those things there. Can they contact you easily? Do they understand what areas you service? If you are local, if you are online, do they understand, whether or not you can actually help them? Are they getting that information? So for example, for me, one barrier might be for some people pricing. And this is a common barrier that most businesses will come up against is people feel that they can't afford the investment. But for my ideal client, it's not an issue. And frankly, if someone wants to work with you or if someone wants what you're selling bad enough, they're going to pay for it. So if you are packaging it in a way that they understand the value of it, pricing really shouldn't be an issue. Now, perhaps they're concerned about meeting with you virtually rather than in person. So how can you make that experience personalized and as intimate as possible, right? So assuming that you've got this online personal fitness business, if you're doing all of this stuff online, they might say, well, I kind of want someone who's actually going to like literally hold my hand through these things. What is it that you might be able to provide to them that says, you know what, actually, you're better off doing virtual. You don't have to leave your house. You can stay in the comfort of your home. You don't have to go to a gym that's super intimidating or anything. But here's how I'm going to personalize it with you. So instead of just doing on-demand videos, you also do some live workouts with them. Or, Peloton has absolutely nailed this in the way they do the leaderboards and such, and the way that they've created such an energized group of trainers, and the way that you really feel like you are a part of that community with Peloton. So thinking of things like that. So Peloton has eliminated that barrier. So take a look at your marketing and the information you're putting out there. Are you putting up any other barriers? Can they find what they need to find easily? Make it ridiculously easy for your clients to get what they need from you. Another example to eliminating barriers in your business, and this is about the type of services that you're offering, of course, but it also goes to your marketing, how you're communicating it, because you can really position yourself ahead of everyone else in the marketplace if you have eliminated some of the most common barriers, especially. So let's take a look at Uber. And when Uber rideshare first came out, a lot of the taxi cab drivers got pretty upset about this new business. And, of course, they were touting about the fact that they didn't have insurance necessarily. And they spent a lot of time trying to tell you all the reasons you shouldn't use Uber, where they probably would have done well to focus their efforts, which in more recent years they have, but they would have done better to focus their efforts on taking a look at the business model that Uber created. How is it that, why are people choosing Uber over taxi cab drivers? And this is a typical case similar to Blockbuster. We got to look at what people are actually looking for. What do they actually want? So Uber solved several common challenges that people had of getting a taxi. One was just getting one in the first place. Whether you're calling one and then waiting for it to arrive and you have no idea when it's actually going to show up, or you're trying to flag one down in the street and in any type of weather, this is super uncomfortable. They solve that by saying, oh, you just tap something on an app, and not only will you know exactly when your driver is going to arrive, but they won't take anyone else but you. So you've got a nice secure ride here. The fact that it's nice and convenient. I don't have to call someone to try to get a ride. I can just tap on my phone. So it's less disruptive to whatever it is that I'm doing. How about fixed rates? People want to know, what is it going to cost me to go from here to the airport or from here to my mother's house? So they solve that by saying, here's what your rate is going to be. And sure, there's fluctuations to it, but you don't have to worry about, if I get stuck in traffic, is this going to cost me an extra $20? No, you know exactly what your rate is going to be regardless of what traffic does. So another example that I'd love to share is Home Depot. So Home Depot identified that a barrier to their clients working with them was the inability to be able to transport things. Not everyone just knows a friend with a pickup truck, right? So what did Home Depot do? They came up with the idea to provide a van that people could rent from them. And it's a fairly low fee to rent this van as well. Now, you may think that something like this is more of a servicing, but it's actually a brilliant marketing strategy. Think about it. Now they've got their value and their hook, of come in and buy whatever you need, drywall, large furniture items, new barbecue, patio stones, anything you need, come and buy it from us and we'll help you get it home. Just borrow this van from us and you can get it home easily. In addition to that, that van is now being driven around the city promoting that it's available. I mean, it's a really brilliant marketing strategy. Use these to kind of inspire you about thinking about what barriers are you putting up to your clients working with you. Now, if you do find that maybe pricing is one of those barriers and it's one that you want to solve, is there a way you can offer some sort of financing? I'm not saying you should be a bank, but I'm talking about teaming up with potentially a financing company, a lender of some sort, to be able to offer your clients a payment option for your services. So always looking at ways that you can eliminate those barriers. And this is going to be a constant practice for you. There's always going to be ways that we can continue to improve our services to stay ahead of the market, ahead of the competition, and be an innovator. Okay, so now I mentioned that there were two areas that you really need to nail down. So one is the marketing. So hopefully now you're getting more and more clear on what you're saying, how you're saying it, and who you're saying it to. So you can really make sure that you've got a clear and concise marketing strategy that's going to work. But none of that matters, of course, if people aren't going to pay the prices you're asking, if they don't value what you're actually offering them. So let's talk about prices. There are a lot of nuances to pricing. So I'm going to speak about this on a relatively high level, but I want to give you enough to get you on the right path anyway. So I want you to start with a market analysis. Take a look at what else is in your market and where do you currently fit into the market? Are you at the top of the market? You're the highest price? Are you at the lowest end of the market? Are you somewhere in the middle? And once you've done that, once you've figured out where you currently are, ask yourself, where do I want to be? Do I want to be the low cost leader? Do I want to be the high end luxury? Do I want to just stay average? And none of these answers are wrong, but you do want to understand where you want to fit into the marketplace. So looking at what other people are doing, how do you feel that you compare in terms of value? And then how do you compare in terms of your pricing? So now I want you to carefully review each service or product that you offer and what it costs you to offer it, and determine what you expect your profit margin should be. So this is the percentage of profit that you want to make from every single transaction. So if you're selling a $10 item and you want to make 40% profit, then your cost should be no more than $6, right? And this is unfortunately the way that a lot of people do this. They say, I want to sell it for $10. And so I'm just going to sell it for $10 and whatever that profit works out to, great. But the reality is that you should be taking a look at your costs first and then adding your profit margin to it to dictate what your price is. So let's take a look at your costs. You've got your labor costs. What is the time that it takes to offer that service? And if applicable, you want to include your travel time. And what is the wage that is being paid to the person who is offering it? Now, even if you are offering this service as the owner of the company, as the CEO of the company, you want to ensure that you are accounting for your time as an expense. And then what is the time that you need to prep for the service? So this might look like some admin time to book an appointment, or perhaps review any sort of details you've received about the client ahead of the appointment. I know I work with a lot of home stagers and designers. Often you'll go on to Google Maps and do a street view of the property to kind of see, get a bit of a feel for what the neighborhood looks like, what the property looks like at that time. For myself as a business coach, for example, I'm always reviewing anything that a client has sent to me in between sessions. What did we review at the last session? What did we say we're going to discuss at this session? And are there things that I need to do to prepare for discussing those items? Do I need to, pull up any templates? Do I need to pull up any files or websites or anything else? Is there any sort of research that I need to do to get myself ready for that meeting? So that is one of the biggest things that a lot of people overlook, is the time that it takes for you to prepare for providing that service. And if the service does require some travel where you are actually leaving your office, you want to ensure that you are accounting for your fuel and your mileage. Now, are there any physical materials provided for the service? For example, if you are an interior designer and you're printing out your floor plans and your concepts in order to be presented to your client, that's a cost of doing business. Usually your samples don't cost you anything, but of course, if they did, that is a cost of doing business that you will want to ensure that you are including as a part of your overall fees. Do you require any other special equipment or supplies? Now, if you accept credit cards, don't forget to account for the merchant fees, those credit card fees. Ensure that you are accounting for that as a part of your operating costs. And then you've got your overhead. This takes into account essentially your standard operating costs that are not paid on direct sales. So while this can be a little bit difficult to calculate, especially if you're just starting out, you want to be sure to add some sort of allowance for this. Talk to your accountant or bookkeeper and see what they would suggest adding in. It depends on how many years in business, depends on the type of business. Essentially, this overhead covers all of your indirect costs to providing services to your customers. So this might be your non-billable labor hours where you're spending time behind the scenes, gaining new knowledge, working on your systems and processes. It's your rent, it's your utilities, your taxes, your insurance, your office supplies, your marketing costs, your continuing education, your certifications, all of those things go into your overhead. So now you cannot create an effective pricing strategy if you don't know these numbers and what things are actually costing you. I speak to a lot of business owners where they say, well, the money's always in the bank, so I assume that's good. But that means you have a good cash flow. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually cash positive on a bank statement, on an actual balance sheet. So you want to take a close look at your numbers and understand what things are actually costing you and what is the profit margin that you're making, and identify what is the profit margin you want to make, because this might mean that you're raising your prices a little bit. All too often, what I see a lot of people make the common mistake of doing is they actually price their items based on what their competitors are doing. But there's a huge flaw in this, in that you don't run the same business as them, and you're going to have different expenses from them as well. Another cost that you want to take into consideration is your opportunity costs. This is the cost of what opportunities you could be missing out on by taking on this particular project or service. So, for example, if you're tied up all day servicing this client and you're only getting paid, say, $1,000, but if you didn't take that job, you could spend time working on your business to land a $5,000 client, then essentially your opportunity cost is $4,000, right? Trying to use some simple numbers here, because I also understand when you're listening to something like this, it's harder to, do all the number crunching. But I want you to sit down and take a look at these things. What is the opportunity cost? What is it that you're missing out on? What is that costing you to take on a service? So you might say like, oh, this service isn't really worth my time, but it pays a couple $100, it's cash in the bank, I'm going to go ahead and do it, but it's taking you away from other more important services. Now, if that particular service, maybe it's a low cost leader, it doesn't really have a whole lot of profit attached to it, it's not really bringing in a ton of money that's overly worth your time, but could potentially has like a high potential to lead you to another larger ticket service for that same client, well, then by all means. But these are things that you should be weighing out when it comes to your pricing and your services and what it is that you will and will not do. So going back to that simple structure for your pricing, it will be your costs plus your profit margin equals your sell price. So go back to, remember I said, think about what it is that you want to make in terms of profit on your services and see how that fits in once you've outlined your costs. Can you make that amount of money based on what you're currently selling your services at? And then reflect on, what does your pricing look like in terms of how is it reflecting your value? How does it reflect what you're worth? Does this make offering the service worthwhile? So let's say you're charging $200 for a service that's costing you realistically only about $60 behind the scenes. That's a pretty high profit margin on it. Do you feel as though that service reflects the value that you're offering? Sure. All the expertise that you've got into it, yep, that's absolutely going to reflect your value. Great. Is it worthwhile? Again, it's a pretty high profit margin. You don't have to do that many of it. It's a quick and easy thing to offer. Sure, maybe you do, right? So evaluate all the services you're providing. And again, I talk about services on this podcast because most of my clients tend to be in service-based businesses. Some have some products that they sell, but most are predominantly based on services. And services give you a lot of flexibility in your pricing because it's not an apples to apples comparison. Two people can be offering similar services, but there are always ways that you can ensure that your service stands out because no one else is your company, right? You and your team are offering a specific service that is unique to your company. So take a look at what is it you're offering? Where do you want to be in the marketplace? Does this reflect your value, your worth? Are you making money on these items? And what about where do you want to be in the marketplace? How does that pricing align with where you want to be in the marketplace? And let me be clear about this as well. If you're thinking, well, I'm not making a lot of profit on this, but I'm just new starting out, so maybe I shouldn't really be charging that much. Understand that if you're not making money, you're not running a business. That doesn't mean that every minute of every day in every business, we're all running a profit-making machine. And especially if you're first starting out, you are going to have some low profit or zero profit years. I know I operated my business when I first launched my home staging business. First few years, I operated at a loss intentionally. I had a business plan that had me operating at a loss for 5 years. I had other ways of paying myself. So I was reinvesting all of the additional funds back into that business so that I could build up a strong home staging inventory. I could build up my team. I could build up my assets. And my intention was to be profitable after 5 years, and I was profitable after 3 years. Sometimes you do build a plan based on that, but you want to make sure you're doing that quite strategically as well. I've spoken all over North America about raising prices, but getting paid your worth isn't just about what you're charging for your overall services. It's about protecting your profit. So this means really understanding your expenses and avoiding unnecessary expenses, operating efficiently, and understanding your profit margins. So it's likely that you've already got your pricing structure set. So if you're setting out to raise your prices, I want to give you just a little sample of what that might look like. So let's say that you are a hairstylist and you have approximately 5 clients per day, and you were to increase each client by $10. So $10 times 5 clients a day is $50 a day, or $250 per week, or an extra $1,000 per month. Small increases really can add up, right? And let's say that you're more of a consultation-based business and your current consult rate is $200. So current rate, $200, you're doing 5 of those a week, you're making $1,000 a week. Now, here's what people often say to me, like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose some clients. Okay, so let's say now you raise your consultation rate to $250. So you're now only doing 4 a week because you lost one of your clients. So you're only doing 4 of these consultations per week. You're still making $1,000 per week. So this means you have one less client per week, but you're making the same amount of money. So you're working less, making the same amount of money. So now if you can increase your volume, you're going to find your new clientele, because that person you lost, they just didn't fit in well with you, with your clientele. So you're going to find someone who does fit in well with you. You're going to replace them, and now you're going to be making more money, right? So even if you lose some clients, keep in mind by raising your prices, provided that not everyone is going to quit as a client with you, which it's highly unlikely that they will, especially if it's a reasonable increase. The other thing that I suggest doing is, if you're going to raise your prices, you may want to raise them immediately for anyone new. And in fact, that's the best way that I recommend doing it. Don't wait to raise your prices. If you think you want to raise your prices and you know what you want to raise them to, do it immediately, effective immediately. But you can potentially grandfather some of your previous clients for a certain period of time. We call it legacy pricing. Sometimes you might have purchased some software at some point where they got you on a monthly rate, and they say, well, our price is going up, but we're going to hold your rate for the next 6 months, or something along those lines. Another way to ensure that you are satisfying everyone when it comes to your pricing is by doing the 3-tier pricing structure. You have probably seen this. Almost everything we buy these days in terms of services has 3 different levels you can choose from. And usually that middle level is sort of the prime one. It's got not all the bells and whistles, but it's got just enough. So I call this the Goldilocks 3-tier pricing structure. This is how you satisfy everyone, because there's going to be something for everyone. So you've got your middle service, which has, most of what most people need. You're going to have a higher end service that adds all the bells and whistles. So there's going to be some people that always want top of the line. They always want the best of the best. They're going to love that service. And then you're going to offer a lower service that still provides a good quality service, of course, but takes out a little bit of the extra coating on things. And so that will give people really good value still, but it will help to bring people in at that lower price point if you feel they're getting a little bit of sticker shock with your regular price. Now, what I suggest doing is, if you only have one offering right now, you don't have the 3 tiers, take that one that you're offering, raise the price on it, then take a few items out and make that the lower price one. So that way, when people come in, you say, oh, let's say you're currently charging $200 for a consultation, you're going to raise it to $2. Now you take a few items out of that, and you can offer that lower service for maybe even a little less. Maybe it's $175 or $200. Make sure it's worthwhile to you still, of course. So now when someone says that they're looking for that $200 consultation, you've got something that will satisfy them. Now, here's an extra bonus tip. Here's what you're going to do. If someone comes to you and they're a little bit price sensitive, and you think they could be a good potential for a repeat client, this is a type of service that they can get over and over again. Maybe it's a car detailing or something, and you've got your bronze, silver, and gold packages. So they really want the silver package, but it's just a little bit too pricey for them. So they're going to go with the bronze instead. So here's what you do. You say, you know what? I'm going to upgrade you from the bronze to the silver, just this one time only. And you're upgrading them. You're not discounting anything. You're going to upgrade them. So yeah, I really want you to experience what the silver package looks like. What generally happens with that is if you've really packed the value into that, once they've experienced it, they're not going to want a lesser version of that. So the next time they come in, they understand they're going to have to pay a little bit more, but it's going to feel worth it. Plus, this encourages reciprocity from them. So you've now done a good thing for them. They want to repay you in some way. So the next time they come back, they might feel that much more inclined to pay for a higher package. So put these practices in place for both your marketing and your pricing. You want to make sure, again, that you are nailing these two down because absolutely nothing else matters. It doesn't matter how great your product is. It doesn't matter how well your customer service offers it. It doesn't matter how efficient your systems and processes are. It doesn't matter what you're planning for the future of your business. If you don't nail these two things down, you don't have a future business. So make sure you really get that marketing, that pricing nailed down. Marketing is a little bit of trial and error, and pricing can be that way as well sometimes. Maybe you're finding that you've raised your prices and no one's biting. Focus first on your marketing. What is your messaging? Are they understanding the value? And if you still can't get that, maybe it is about tweaking the pricing just a touch as well. So play with these things and do a little bit of trial and error and test, and measure and ensure that you are getting it right for what you consider is best for your business and your brand. All right, I'm going to wrap up today's episode. Listen, if what I'm saying here today resonates with you, please be sure to like us and subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast. But also, you know what? Share it. Share it with a friend. If you know someone else that might benefit from the message that we're providing here today, please share this episode with them. I would so appreciate it. It means a lot to me that you are tuning in each week and listening, and I hope that you will allow me to continue to be a part of your journey by tuning in every Tuesday when new episodes drop. Thank you so much for listening today, and until next time, keep thriving.